think she's a fan too. So.
And welcome everybody to the first 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe of 2021. I missed everybody last week. I felt odd not doing a show. Just want to kick things off right away. Some questions have come up from members of council, members of the community, and I felt the best way to get a lot of this information out is to go to the chief himself and have these conversations. Obviously, issues in the United States are continuing, and we needed to make sure where we're at in Reynoldsburg. So we're going to go ahead and start off very simply put. What is the process that occurs in Reynoldsburg when a shooting occurs?
So a shooting occurs in Reynoldsburg. The first thing is to make sure the scene is safe. That's for the officers, potential victims, anybody that needs medical aid. The protection of life is the very first thing. Once that scene is secured, we will bring in outside resources to investigate. So we will not investigate our own officer-involved shootings. If it's a two-citizen shooting or a citizen shooting, we would investigate that. But any officer-involved shooting, we would go to an outside agency, and we have a priority list for that. So the first one would be we would contact BCI, which they also now do Columbus's shootings when they have them. If they are unavailable, we would use Columbus's CERT team. It's a critical incident response team. They are trained to investigate these types of incidents. And then our third option would be Franklin County Sheriff if the other two were not available.
Okay. One term that gets used a lot, and it's kind of like in the game, like people, you know what it means, I know what it means, but not everybody is as familiar with the term. It's called use of force. What exactly is use of force? And then if use of force occurs, what's the process? What do you do when it comes to that? How do you review it? Things of that nature.
Yeah, so we have very specific requirements and policies whenever a use of force occurs. So use of force is the use of a physical method for compliance. So that could be as simple as an officer taking somebody to the ground. We also have less lethal options. So you know that we carry a taser, we carry a tool that's a beanbag shotgun. We have other options to where we can progress prior to lethal force. So every one of those is investigated at multiple steps in our chain of command. So it's immediately investigated by the on-scene supervisor. So the on-scene supervisor shows up, they interview the officer that's involved, and then they also interview any witness to that use of force if they're available. Once a report is written, it will now go to the next level of review, which would be the lieutenant of whatever subdivision that officer works for. Lieutenant will do an independent investigation. They'll look at all the reports, all the body cam footage, cruiser camera, witness statements, and they will make an independent evaluation of that use of force. They write that up, they then send it to the deputy chief. She does the exact same thing, and then it comes to me, and then I make that. There are times where if we think there may be legal liability, we will also consult with the city attorney to get his opinion. So every use of force, whether it's a minor takedown or use of a taser, every one of those are investigated to make sure they are appropriate and proper.
You mentioned body cams. Obviously, that's been in the news recently. I know our policy is a little bit different than what people have been seeing in neighboring jurisdictions. So can you talk a little bit about our body cam policy here, specifically in Reynoldsburg?
Yeah, so if you've been following the news, you may have learned something about police procedures and priority of calls. So while we do also prioritize calls based upon how we will respond to them and when we will or when we can, we leave that out of our body-worn camera policy. So once we are called to any enforcement action, any investigative contact, or any traffic stop, that body-worn camera is to be turned on. So it's a little more inclusive than some other agencies' policies. We feel comfortable with that. Technology has also improved in the body-worn camera game. As you know, we started body-worn camera program 2 years ago, and the technology then is a lot different than it is now. You're learning more about body-worn cameras, but the new camera that council just funded is much better than the camera that we currently wear. So our current camera does not allow a review look back. It also does not do what's called ghost recording. Our new cameras will have something called ghost recording. I'll explain what that is. The officer doesn't actually need to activate the camera for there to be a recording. Now, obviously, that can cause some concerns when you're wearing something 24 hours a day. You may have to go to the bathroom, things of that nature. So we want to restrict when that recording can be viewed. So we will have to review our policy once we get the new technology, and we will write something in there that works for everybody. So most likely that policy will allow us to review that ghost recording, even though the camera's not activated, in instances of critical incidents. So you will always have a recording. It won't matter if the officer activates it, forgets to activate the camera. We'll have a recording for a short period of time that we can pull off of the system. So it's a really great step in the right direction.
Yeah, I know the technology changes, just the ability to have that after the fact, can alleviate some of the concerns that we've seen out there. I know originally that was, there were a lot of thoughts in the beginning to model the same policy on other jurisdictions and things like that, and you decided to go in a different direction, and that was when you were deputy chief, correct?
Yes. So we looked at policies all over the city. Obviously, we have to work with the union, discuss policies with them. So there was a little bit of conflict there with our policy when we implemented it. It was so important to us to capture more instances of citizen contacts, that we did not change our policy as we originally implemented it. Now what you'll probably find is more policies will become more similar to the policy that we have because of these incidents that have occurred. So I feel really comfortable with our policy. We will update it according to new technologies that come on board, but I feel good where we're at right now with our policies.
Yeah, I was very forward thinking. It was something that I think that, as these technologies are new to people in the outside community, it's good to have an understanding of where we came from and then what improvements we're making along the way. One other issue that has come up is about rendering aid. So the officers come upon a scene regardless of circumstance, and someone is injured. What are Reynoldsburg officers' responsibilities?
Yeah. So again, we kind of go back and look at other people's policies, and you'll see that other agencies' policies are different. Every local jurisdiction has different policies. We do have I'm comfortable with our policy. Is that our policy requires officers to seek medical aid at the earliest time and render first aid if necessary until EMS arrives. So obviously we go back if there's a critical scene where there's a shooting, we have to make sure the scene is safe. Once that scene is safe, then we should be rendering aid to the person that's hurt. In 2020, we realized that RPD, we haven't had first aid training in quite some time. So before these issues even occurred, we saw that as a need within the agency. We partnered with Truro Township Fire. They actually sent medics over here and trained our entire staff in first aid. We also supply our officers with a medical bag. Now, we are not trauma doctors, so I don't want to get the perception that we are going to be able to fix everything, but our goal is to keep somebody alive until medical professionals arrive on scene. So I just want to kind of share with you, if that's okay.
Yeah,
each officer is equipped with these bags, and with these incidents, you'll see some of these supplies could be useful. So we have a little quick clot. So this will, you put this in a wound and it'll clot the bleeding to stop somebody, hopefully, from bleeding out. We also have an open chest injury seal. It's probably, I don't know if you've ever seen one of these, Mayor, but
thankfully, no.
If you have say a puncture wound in the chest, air can get into your body cavity and can cause you, it can be fatal. So you want to close that and seal it. That's what that allows. Most of the things, this one's the one that most citizens know about, and this is a tourniquet. So each of our officers also have a bag that includes a tourniquet where they can render first aid and keep somebody from bleeding out. So mainly what you're going to see officers do in situations is common things like apply pressure to wounds, CPR. Within the last year, I just looked up, and it's not a stat we keep, but I tried to find it through our computer notes. We have rendered CPR 4 times within the city in 2020, And then we've also rendered first aid on a shooting over on Channing Way in 2020. So 5 times our officers have stepped up and rendered first aid to citizens in the area.
It's good to hear just what the process is. Now, another question that tends to come up a lot, really, with police departments in general, is the idea of the culture within the squad, the culture within the police department itself. Tell about, I know you and I have talked at length about how do you create a culture. Obviously, we want to be the most respected unit in the state of Ohio and beyond. But how do you do that? How do you get people to buy into what the best ideals of what a Reynoldsburg police officer is? What kind of things have you been doing?
Yeah, well, it starts from the top of what the expectations are of the agency. And, the main expectation that I want people to feel is that when the Reynoldsburg police show up, you're going to be safe. Whether it's when we're writing a ticket, taking enforcement action, we don't want people to fear the Reynoldsburg police. So that is the expectation from me to our officers. When you started here at the beginning of the year, we talked about 3 priorities: training, diversity, and community outreach. And we've talked a little bit about training. You've put additional resources in training. We have a full-time training officer, a part-time training and administrator, but we've also focused on diversity inside our unit. So 7 out of the last 13 police officers that we have hired have been African American, and we all know the benefits of diversity within the workplace. It leads to an understanding of different cultural backgrounds, and not only does that help within the agency, that helps with how our officers deal with people within the community. So we will continue to focus on diversity within the agency, understanding each other within the agency, which will help our communications outside the agency.
Now, you did mention, as we were talking about a lot of things, there were a couple of events this past year where you used some of those de-escalation techniques to kind of prevent what we may be seeing in other communities. Could you just give us kind of not an individual rundown, but just kind of a general idea of what that's like, what that means?
Yeah, so we've had 3 what I would call critical incidents that could have led to lethal use of force. So we've had 3 confrontations with people armed with knives. One we believe was probably thinking about suicide by a cop. We were able to de-escalate and use less lethal tactics to safely resolve those issues without using lethal force. Now, I will say that a little bit of luck is involved in there. The suspects or the subject's actions dictate a lot of our response. If there's another move, those could very easily become lethal force incidents. But what I'm proud of is that I consistently see our officers being patient. They're using their trained de-escalation techniques, and that gives time to resolve these issues without leading to lethal force. Now, I can never promise you we're never going to have a lethal force incident here in the city, but what I can say is that we are equipping our officers with the tools to try to minimize that risk.
Because one thing that, I've talked to enough officers in general over the past year that no one has ever come out and said, that they want to be in a situation like that. Most of them don't want to be. I mean, everybody wants the same thing at the end of the shift. They want the officers to go home. They want whatever the suspect is, whatever the issue is, they want them to be home and safe and all of that stuff. You don't ever want to be put in a position, but I think that, continuing to work with our body cams and our internal policies and our training and all of those things, we will do everything that we can to reduce the instances and the likelihood of something like that happening in our community. And while COVID has kind of limited our community engagement a little bit, we are still doing a lot of those things. It's not an easy job. I do not envy the officers that are out there in the environment, but I know that we in Reynoldsburg, we support them. We want the best for our officers. We want the best for our community, and we need to continue to work together. And I think that this was very helpful that for everybody out there to kind of witness and hear firsthand what some of these things are. I think a lot of times people aren't sure that you can't just paint policies of one particular jurisdiction with all the other ones. Everything's a little bit different, and I'm glad that we are kind of in the forefront of a lot of these things to make our community as safe for everybody as possible. So
yeah, I mean, I always have an open door policy to the community. Anybody can call me. Just to go back on when these incidents occur, the public probably doesn't know, but we communicate regularly, even on incidents that don't occur within the city. So when the incidents occur, when we get facts of the incident, we then review our policies to make sure we're comfortable where they're at, or if we need to change policies. We're usually ahead of where we need to be. but there may be an instance where we need to adjust what we're doing. So I want the community to know that even though these things occur other places, we don't take them. We do take them seriously, and we review to make sure we are comfortable with our policies.
And the good thing is for you and I, it's been a great working relationship that we've had, talking to everybody out there. We've had some hard conversations, and we've had some good conversations about what goes on outside of our community, and it's more of a proactive approach. And that's what I appreciate, because we want to make sure that we are as proactive as possible. Well, I appreciate it. I know you've got a busy day ahead of you, so we will go ahead and let you take your leave of us before we get on to our next guest. But I appreciate it. Again, anytime if you have any questions, you feel free to call and contact the chief or myself, and we'll be happy to sit down and talk with you about any of our particular issues in the city. So thank you again, Chief. I appreciate it. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the other moment we've been waiting for. Clerk of Council, Mollie Prasher, has joined us, and she's brought props. See, Chief wasn't the only one. We do have just one real quick thing that I want to throw out there before we get started with talking about some cool things from you. We are going to have a town hall meeting in late February. Hopefully it will be in the public thing, depending on what happens when it comes to our code enforcement. Right now, code enforcement's we're at a standstill. It's cold out. Not everybody's doing a lot of things outside. But what we're going to try and do is have some kind of a town hall meeting to broadcast out there with one of our code enforcers to actually talk about, hey, what are they going to be looking for in this next season? What are they going to be looking for when the summer comes up, that type of thing. So stay tuned for that. We'll be getting that a little bit later. So again, one of the first person that I wanted to bring on, because this is probably the least busy she's going to be for the rest of the year, is Clerk of Council Mollie Prasher. Thank you so much for coming. You are the behind-the-scenes person, and if you've watched council meetings, you see your face, and you are the one that is trying to balance everything with council, the technology, the broadcasting, and all of those other different types of things. So you may know her from that, but really the big question is, what is a clerk of council? Give me more specifics.
Well, hopefully my family and friends are watching, because they've asked me that for years. I'm a clerk of almost 14 years. And when I tell people what I do, people don't have a clue what it means to be clerk of council. I equate it to being something we don't have many of anymore, is a train conductor. I keep it on time, on schedule, on track. I do all of the back scene things that make things happen, make sure the legislation is written, make sure council is aware of everything that is happening in the administration. Make sure that we follow it. It is a very precise and detail-oriented position, in that we have state Ohio Revised Code laws that council has to follow. Reynoldsburg is a charter community, and a charter is similar to the U.S. Constitution. It is a set of laws by which council, Reynoldsburg, and the people of the city of Reynoldsburg decided in the 60s, I believe, to follow, and a set of rules. And then council has a set of rules that they have to follow. And so it is my job to make sure we follow those precisely, because there can be serious consequences should we make an error. And that is something I never want to have happen. The other thing that I think is most important is I'm the link between the community and council members. Council members do not have a job here. They all have private jobs or are retired, and they come for meetings. So it is hard to get in contact with them. Their contact information is online, and you can find their emails, but sometimes you want to talk to a real person. So calling me, either I can give you the answer, or connect you with the council people, the correct council people, or sometimes you want to complain to your elected official. But if you want a solution to your problem, I might know the direct person to speak to, so your problem is solved quickly. Now, if you want to call and just voice a complaint, you can do that. And council is probably your individual, either council at large representative or your ward member would be the person you would want to speak to. But if you have a problem, give me a call, and I'll try to help you solve it. I try to be the end of the line for people who have issues. So what I do, particularly this last year, I've never done any of it. I had to find out how to get council meetings virtual. and how to, when this is over and council is in person, residents want to continue seeing council and their smiling faces. So I've had to figure out how to make that happen. And luckily, the state of Ohio has a very active clerks association that I'm part of. So we have spent a lot of hours sharing and kibitzing and complaining, I will admit it, about what we've had to do. But it is a great source of information and has made doing this job a lot easier. So hopefully, everybody is enjoying watching council meetings. Please, we're the second and fourth Monday of the month. Tune into this Facebook page and you can watch us all.
It's a good thing. I know we'd always talked about getting things to be able to put things online, and it was one of those things that we were going to do eventually, and then because of what happened with COVID, it accelerated that. What I've noticed is that while council meetings themselves, sometimes they're attended depending on what the topic is, but I've noticed we have a greater attendance rate for people watching council. And not only at the time the council's going on, but even funny when you look back and see what the videos are, a couple of days afterwards, you're seeing so many more people watching it. And it's just another option to give information out there. We do have a YouTube channel as well, so if you don't want to continue to scroll through all of our Facebook pages, there's a possibility that you can look at those as well. Now, when I bring up COVID, outside of council, what kind of brought you joy? What kind of kept you going through it and made you smile?
I found out I am a quarantine lover. I like being at home. I like not having to do all of the commitments that I had previously. But I have spent my COVID time, I am the repository of my father's, my mother's, and my ex-husband's family of pictures and documents. And I have been sorting through all of those and organizing them for my children and sharing them with my extended family, my cousins. Finding my father's baptismal certificate and my parents' wedding certificate, my grandparents' wedding certificate, and my ex-husband's great-great-great-grandfather's wedding certificate.
Oh, wow.
Which are all framed. I found a chalk drawing of my ex-husband's grandfather's in his World War I uniform that I framed and is hanging at my daughter's home. So it has been melancholy in that most of these people are gone, but also a great joy in, you and I are both history lovers. I have a degree in history. So this has been an exciting process for me to see and live and connect to my personal roots and my children's personal roots. So
it's fun. It seems like every family has that one person that does that. I know I have an aunt that lives in New York, and she's done that. She's gone so far back, actually. She's actually gone overseas to visit, our distant relatives that live in Eastern Europe. It's kind of a combination of a lot of different Eastern European nations. That's basically where I'm from. But it's just interesting to get that perspective. It's a lot of times we don't, our history doesn't just end at, our grandparents. It goes much further beyond that. Now, this year, aside from some of the COVID challenges, what are typically some of the biggest changes that you've made in the legislative process, over the last year, and what things are you looking to do as we move forward to make council as efficient as possible?
Well, events happened very fortuitous for me. I've been with Reynoldsburg only for a year and a half. And after the first 6 months, we had a big change in administration, and we had a large change in council members, which allowed me as a clerk to make a lot of changes and not step on anyone's feet. So last year there were a lot of changes. I streamlined council meetings hugely in that you used to have a specific separate public hearing, each individual committee meeting. I did away with that, incorporated all that into one council agenda, so I streamlined the agenda. We also, which allowed, I think, people to understand and see a better flow of how council functions. I also re-implemented the consent agenda, which means once you hear council talk about all of the legislation in each committee meeting, you don't have to hear it again. We just approve and move through it. We have a software program that puts together on the backside all the information that gets shared with the council members and the administration. I went in and made many changes to that to make that more efficient, make it more function, so there weren't tweaks and changes that had to be made after the fact. Let the software do its job.
Yeah.
I also developed a book for administration and council and a formal orientation process that I think was very effective. I also tried to make the whole system more transparent. I met with department heads and associates early on to explain how the software works and what I need from them. I've written down guidelines and policies so everybody's aware of what they are and can refer to that when you forget and what dates. So a lot of changes like that, besides the physical changes to the council chamber in technology.
I find it fascinating just to see, because for a long time I was sitting in the audience watching, and while I don't play a major role in council meetings, it's still interesting to see the changes between one to the other. I think the consent agenda, it allows for the debate to happen where they should, which is usually typically in the committee meetings, and that's where you have those conversations, that's where you have those things, and then the consent agenda goes in from there. I'll share my thoughts on how to shorten meetings later on too in just a little bit. Now, that's for us. We're here in the building, we look at it, we see things, and for those of you that are out there, you can go onto our webpage, which will be redesigned this year, but we'll get into that some other time. You can go on and you can find out I guess you could say there's the agenda and then the agenda packet. And the agenda just basically says this is what's going on. And the agenda packet is usually anywhere between 200 and 600 pages worth of all of those other materials that you were just talking about that are in there. So if you want to see minutes, conversations, you want to actually see the contracts, you want to see whatever the terms of everything else that's in there, you can do that in that bigger packet, which is good. So there's always two things to look at. Kind of the Reader's Digest and then the extended novel version of everything from council. Now, if somebody out there wants to be more aware of things and they just want to get more access to it, what would you suggest would be the best way to get more information about what goes on in council?
If you really want to know what's happening in council, email me. I need your email address, and every time a council packet is sent out, I will share a link with you. That'll tell you A, when the meeting is, and B, it'll provide you that 600-page packet that you don't have to look through it all, but it'll give you, if you're tech savvy at all, you can skip through the sections and just go to the sections you want to read about. But that's what I would do. There are people that have signed up for that receive that, and it is just a link. It isn't the whole packet in your email, so it doesn't clog up your email. It's a link that connects to our webpage. So that's the best way. Here's my email address, or call me at 322-6836. And that's how you can get in touch with council also, or call and ask about a piece of legislation, or if you hear a rumor about something possibly being on the agenda. I've prevented a lot of people from having to come to meetings saying, no, it's not on there, or you're thinking that it's at a planning commission meeting. So the staff here, down to the maintenance person, is so happy to help any resident who has a question. So please reach out to us. We intend to be as transparent. My reputation is based on the fact that I will give any information that is legally allowed. So please reach out to me. I'm happy to help you. The mayor's office is always happy to help. Any staff member, if you see them at the grocery store, will be happy to help direct you to where you need to go. And that's the effort as a resident you have to make to know what's happening in your community, is to just reach out. From there, we can give you everything. And being part of Reynoldsburg Connect gives you a monthly newsletter. Watching the Joe Show every Wednesday gives you a ton of information. He's funny. It's a good 30 minutes. And we all have email addresses, so please reach out.
And I did not pay her for any of that. Now, one good thing that happened during this time is you and I share not only an affinity for history, but we enjoy dressing up.
We do.
So if you remember in October, she and I would go back and forth every day. We were the only two that would dress up every single day.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where the gauntlet had been dropped, and now we have to top each other again next year. So we're already thinking about costumes for the 2021 thing. But that was fun. And it's just, again, it's the camaraderie. It's the fun things to make in a time where COVID makes things unusual. that was just nice to have a little bit of a break here in the building. What was really funny is we had a new employee in our water department, and her first day was the first day that we were all dressing up. And so she would see a number of us walking around in costumes, and she's still with us, by the way. So, but yeah, that was the welcome to Reynoldsburg version of things.
Well, you mentioned, Mayor, when you came on board in January that Halloween was a big deal for you, and I said, well, I'll go with you. And then you threw down the gauntlet, and then I had to make improvements on my costumes. But I had a wonderful time, and that was brought a lot of joy to a lot of people.
It was a lot of fun. So now's our fun time where we get some questions from the public. So let's see if we have any today, do we?
I don't have any questions
Nothing
at this
yet.
time.
All right. Well, you've explained everything
I'm so diverse,
well.
everybody. I am so comprehensive. They all got it.
Well, from my point of view, what I really like is I do love the attention to detail. I like the deadlines version of things. The teacher in me loves that. This is when it's due. So we always have to, if we want to submit something, we have a deadline to do it. And then once it comes to that point in time, it's very unlikely that it will get put on an agenda once that deadline goes through, which allows everybody to kind of get a little bit of an idea, especially when they're trying to find out what's coming up on the agenda. So if you could stick around for a little bit, maybe there'll be some other questions will come up. We do have a couple of cool things coming up in the near future. I know social media has asked about our Parks and Rec basketball. We are working to still have our Parks and Rec basketball. We're just getting some details as far as what we can do with the population. So we have 18U, 14U, 12U, 10U, all of these different things. We think we have enough coaches, but if you want to, please let us know. But it's about how do we make sure that we're doing this in a safe environment. So we're working with the school district to make sure that we can maximize the use of the gym space, to make sure that we can have people to come in. We're trying to figure out how many spectators that we can have that is deemed safe and things of that nature. So we're working on that right now to try and make sure that all of those details are set up. But we do want to have it. I want to have it. I know we were even talking about bringing volleyball back. We're just working on some things. Anything for the kids to get a little bit more active in a safe way is what we're trying to do. So please stay tuned to our Parks and Rec page and my show, and I'll always try and update you about that. And I know pretty soon, believe it or not, I know it's only the early January, but we're going to start seeing some spring soccer stuff coming up in the not too distant future. I've got a couple of events coming up on Martin Luther King Day. We have the Martin Luther King Day of Service here in Reynoldsburg. Members of City Council, including Councilwoman Meredith Lawson-Rowe, Councilwoman Shanette Strickland, and President Angie Jenkins, are going to be distributing personal protective equipment between 12 and 2 p.m. right here at City Hall. So you're more than welcome to come out, and masks and other materials, just kind of keep your eye out on that. So it's just one way to kind of give back to a community, especially because obviously until the vaccine is out there in bigger quantities and all of that, these masks are going to hang around, and you can never have too many masks. Sometimes people lose them. Apparently they lose them at the grocery store, on the ground, in the parking lot, a lot. I don't know why, but they do. We also have a really cool thing that kind of came up, and it has nothing to do with the city, but some members of the community came together and they created a Blessing Box Facebook page. So you can find out where all the blessing boxes are in the community. So we have one right in front of City Hall where you can leave non-perishable food and hygiene items and things like that for those that are in need to be there. And I don't want to name any one particular because I know there were a multiple number of people that actually brought that out. But you can go onto the Facebook page and look at Reynoldsburg Blessing Box, and it will give you a location of where all of those are. And they give updates every so often about this box needs this or that box needs that, or they just let everybody know where the boxes are. And in this time of need, anything can help for those that are less fortunate than others. So kind of keep that in mind out there. I do have my water department hint. I'm starting to really dig deep into figuring out how we can save on water in the city of Reynoldsburg. This one's a new one. It's a humidifier check. So obviously humidifiers are, even in winter, we still use them. So to find out if your humidifier is actually set right during the winter, what you want to do is you want to drain the water instead of maybe into a sump pump. You want to drain it into a pan. If there's water present, you might have the humidifier set a little bit higher than you should at this time. So you want to kind of keep an eye on that. So you'll need to adjust it until there isn't any water present. That's kind of the idea. So you're not running through some of the water supply near as much going through. But that's one of the water hints. We're hoping to do some other things for the water department in the not too distant future as well. But kind of stay tuned to council meetings as we're working to try and find creative ways to help save some money for the city in that part. We do have our next community commission meeting next Wednesday, January 13th at 7 p.m. our Arts and Beautification, our Transportation and Traffic Committee, our Military Recognition, as well as our Welcoming and Diversity Committee have been very active over the last month and a half with their own individual meetings, coming up with a number of things. A couple of highlights really for Arts and Beautification is the organization of a group litter pickup project. We did some things with some of the scout groups earlier in the year. I know that there's another one that they're looking to do specifically in areas on Livingston and Bryce where we can kind of clean up some of the trash in that area. I know the Military Recognition Committee is looking at how do we continue to improve upon our Military Memorial Plaza on the corner of Main and Lancaster. We also have our Welcoming and Diversity Committee, which is trying to figure out how do we incorporate a more welcoming sense in Reynoldsburg. So one of the things that they have talked about is a welcome booth at community events. So we're looking to have a welcome booth that's city-oriented, but people that can come in and find out information about anything that they want to from the city, and actually have a presence at those locations, not just the Tomato Festival, but any event that we have out there. As well as recognizing diversity. Again, post-COVID, we're looking at having some of our celebration of diversity at the high school, the Macedonian church, things of that nature. And then everybody's favorite, transportation, keep that in mind. There's a lot of discussion about the potential for roundabouts here in Reynoldsburg. Some people love them. Other people on Facebook, not so much. But the conversation needs to happen so we can figure out, all right, if we were to have roundabouts, where could they be? What would be logistically possible? What is the safest way to do it? Things like that. We actually had a meeting with a couple of council members and our engineering firm to talk about where those kind of roundabouts could possibly be. I know the Transportation Committee is looking forward to it, and we're just working on trying to set a time that they can actually listen to the engineer and hear their words as well on some things. And then eventually they're going to report back to council to kind of make any kind of recommendations. We also had our Tomato Fest meeting. Believe it or not, we already had our first one. It was last night, and we're going to do it again on February 2nd. Last night we talked about a couple of big things. One is volunteer opportunities. Putting everything up and taking everything down is a time-consuming thing. But it's also relatively, I don't want to say easy, but it's the easiest thing to do because you just kind of get in and you know you're done when all the chairs are put away. We talked about having a sensory day for some of our youth in the community that don't like loud sounds, that don't want to have the flashing lights and things like that, so kind of make it more inclusive for everyone. We also talked about how do we incorporate the tomato more into things, whether it's apparently tomato desserts, which then we got the conversation of is a tomato a fruit or a vegetable, and then that just kind of spiraled from there. But there were some things about that, as well as the continuation of some of the good things that we did the last time. The tomato wars especially was one that was brought up. What about tomato juice and things like that? And hopefully soon we're going to be talking and making the official announcement as to who our musical guests are. We're just waiting for one more confirmation. We should have that one. But I think the wait will be over soon, and I think it'll be a good thing all the way around for everyone. I have a lot of information. Any questions so far?
Nope.
All right, well, we're doing good. So next Fireside Chat is going to be next week, and we are actually going to be welcoming in Franklin County Engineer Cornell Robertson. So he's going to come in and talk to us because we have a couple of things out there that we're looking to work with the county engineers. Obviously, we have our Wagner Road project that we're looking forward to doing in a couple of years. We also have some... As Councilwoman Kristen Bryan has mentioned, kind of our sidewalks to nowhere, where we're looking over off Palmer at the 5-way intersection where all of a sudden you have a sidewalk and then you don't have anything. And that's something that we're looking to work on this year on our sidewalk and street program. And obviously because there's a bridge there, we're going to have him involved in this in some way. We're doing bridge inspections this year as well to make sure that our bridges are safe. And it's probably just a good idea to have him in to kind of let us know a little bit about how the county and the cities work together. So we're looking forward to having Cornell out here. Things that we're going to look forward to this year, I'm very excited with all the cool things that are coming up. We have anywhere from 12 to 15 major projects that are going to be coming in the city, most of which you know about, some of which you will know about, and you're going to find out here first. So from here on out, any new developments that are going to be coming to the city, whether they be commercial, residential, anything along those lines, we're going to make those announcements here live on the 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe every Wednesday when we have something. And we're going to let it know there so everybody can see it. And we've got pictures. So one of them, the questions have come up, is what's being built over on Main Street at such and such. So I'm going to go show you a picture. This is Hickman Orthodontist. There we go. Now you got it. This is actually what's going to be built on Main Street, and it's just going to be where the new construction is, where Gene Johnson's real estate office was, and that's what the building is going to look like. So you can kind of see what the architecture looks like and things of that nature. We are thrilled that they are going to be here. We are thrilled that this is what the building is going to look like right off of Main Street. I know they're ecstatic to be opening up a new facility. So we have them. We also know that Swenson's is going to be opening soon. They're moving that thing real fast. And then the Walgreens, a little bit closer to the edge of town on the Main Street side, they're hoping to open, I think, not by the end of this month, but by the end of February. And then we have a whole bunch of other stuff. But you got to tune in here at the 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe to hear about all those fun things. We also have the State of the City is going to be coming up. We're waiting to kind of confirm a couple of things on the date. I would love to have it live, but again, with COVID, we're not necessarily sure. So we will probably have an announcement on when that is in the next couple of weeks, but it'll probably be mid-February to late February. I will be giving an abridged version to the Chamber of Commerce. So if you're not familiar with our Reynoldsburg Chamber of Commerce, go ahead and go to their website or Facebook page. You can find out. They have a monthly meeting every Thursday where you can have. This time it's not live, but you can have lunch, and then you get to meet other members of the community and the business community here in Reynoldsburg. It's great for networking. They put on a good show of how to improve your LinkedIn account, how to maximize advertising, all of those things, which is a great opportunity out there. This time it's just going to be an online version, so we get to bring our own lunches, which helps because that way everybody gets what they want. The downside is usually at these things they've had a number of times they've had nothing but cake, the little buntlets there at the end that somehow mysteriously vanish really fast. But those are a couple of things out there. Do we have any comments or questions?
Nope, not yet.
All right. Well,
Quiet crowd today.
All right. Well, we'll get there eventually. My closing remarks, as always, I want everybody to stay safe, stay respectful. Obviously, put your shopping carts away. Make sure you throw your masks away when you're done with them in a garbage can. It's not that hard, folks. Trust me. It's not. Just right in the garbage. Look forward to seeing you all next week and with our State of the City. And obviously, most importantly, go Ohio State Buckeyes. Let's take down that Alabama team.
But before you watch the game, tune in to Council at 6:30 next Monday.
You might see the fastest council meeting ever next Monday night. It might, I don't think we're going to have a lot of. See, that's what I was going to talk about. Is how do you shorten those council meetings?
I talk really fast.
You talk really fast, and then the other part is the shout out aspect of things. That sometimes they go on for a while. We love recognizing a lot of things. It's great, but sometimes it needs to be a little bit faster. Council members, just throwing that out there for you.
And Mayor, even if you can't have live people at your State of the Union, it can be live broadcast
It'll be
in
live.
Council Chamber.
Absolutely.
Using our new video.
Yeah,
system.
and there's now it's not just cameras from the back, so they can see what's little of my hair is
We've
left.
got 3 cameras that I can operate and move close up. I'm suddenly a producer.
Yeah. There you go. So
Director.
add that to the next
New
thing.
hat. All right.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. It's going to be a great 2021. We look forward to seeing you the rest of the year. Have a great day.
Happy New Year.